What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Hopefully, everyone is having a great day. Masters is off and running. Hopefully, if you've gambled like I have, our bets are looking promising. Can't win it all on Thursday, but you definitely can lose it. I promise you that. We're going to dive into a couple different things today. Something I noticed last night at the Warriors game in regards to Steph Curry and how it's just so different from a lot of other sports, specifically football. Something draft wise, we try to do something every single day in regards to the draft. And the Nuggets fired Mike Malone yesterday in the NBA, and I do wonder if it was because, in a weird way, of Sean McVay. So we'll touch on some different things. Obviously, slow couple weeks in the world of football as teams are meeting draft wise, getting ready for a couple weeks. But everyone's kind of hunkered down in their facility, really trying to dial in that draft board, which is always a fun time of year. But, for us content creators, podcasters, I'd like some more explosive stories, but nothing really is going on. But we will talk some sports. But before we do, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. Went to a sporting event for the first time in a while last night, thanks to my buddy Mark, who took me and my wife to the Suns game, which was really the Warriors game. Had a great time, and it got me thinking. Like sometimes it's just nice to mix up your routine, get out of the house, especially for us podcasters, put on some real clothes. The only time we do that, at least in my world, is when I play golf. Other than that, I'm basically wearing the same thing on a daily basis and just interact with the people and get out there. And you're like, you know what? You guys should do that too. So if you want to go to an NBA playoff game, it starts in a week. You want to go to an NHL playoff game, I would guess it starts relatively soon. You want to go to a baseball game, Major League Baseball, off and running. Concert season right around the corner. People, I heard we were talking about it last night. Carrie Underwood had a residency in Vegas. I've never heard anybody that has gone to Vegas, whether it be at the Sphere, which I've heard is incredible, or just seen someone in a residency situation like, the Eagles or Celine Dion back that didn't have a great time. Sometimes just going to a concert is a great way to get a positive mood going if you're a little down in life. And that's where Game Time comes in. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. When I got out of football, the first time I ever went to an NFL game was when I worked for the Eagles. I never got to go to one growing up. And the first time I'd been to NBA and baseball games in my youth, but my introduction to them once I got into kind of the radio world and I left football was really cool because, in the NFL or even college football, game day is no different. High school is very serious. There's not a lot of bullshitting going on a football field an hour, 2 hours before a game. It's a very, very serious environment. And I remember when I started working in radio, that I got credentials to go to the Giants, and this is when they were really good, like Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, who I actually sat next to last night at the Suns game, really cool dude, and the NBA games, where the Warriors at the time were coached by Mark Jackson and kind of this up and coming team. But I remember going to a lot of these games because you could just go to batting practice 3 hours or 2 hours before the game and just talk with Buster Posey standing there, and you just have a conversation, or Hunter Pence, or whoever. Same thing in the NBA. You could just get there early. This is when they were really young, and like have a conversation with Klay Thompson about football. And it was like, God, this is a completely different world at the professional level than the NFL, where it's like you would never, ever, if you didn't know them, go up to a player when he's like warming up an hour before the game. Like, hey, Carson Palmer, what do you think? It's like, get out of my way, bro. Same thing with coaches. If you don't know them, you're probably not striking up a conversation, right? It's a tense environment. So it was very, very cool to see something else. And the one thing with football that's and I would say baseball a little bit too, is the franchise, like Aaron Judge, is clearly one of the greatest Yankees of all time. But if he disappeared tomorrow, the Yankees will find another player. And their brand, like overall, the power of the brand, no different than the Lakers with LeBron, who's one of the great players of all time. The Lakers brand was enormous before him. It'll be enormous after him. Why? Because it's been built up for decades and decades and decades. I remember, listen, I've been to a lot of games in with the Niners or the Raiders and seen the Steelers and especially the Packers. And it's amazing how big and rabid their fan base is and how national it is. So when you go to a game against the Packers or the Steelers, if your team is bad, they are going to have a home field advantage. And I definitely saw with the Raiders and some of their bad teams, the Steelers is like, this is a Steeler home game. Same thing with the Packers. It's because for decades upon decades upon decades, for countless different groups of players, they have built the brand that is the Steelers, that is the Packers, that is the Cowboys. Hell, that is the 49ers. I grew up on Steve Young and Jerry Rice. They were not the 49ers, right? In terms of like the Niners, since then, they moved transitioned to Jeff Garcia, then they got Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan. They've had other successes. Like the brand really took off with Bill Walsh and Joe Montana. And I think sometimes individuals can pierce through that. And I would say the best example when I was a child was Michael Jordan. Like, I'm not a Bills or a Bulls historian, but I don't think the Bulls were that important before he got there. And he turned the Bulls into one of the greatest cash cow brands you've ever seen. And it was simply because of Michael Jordan. It wasn't the franchise, it wasn't the ownership, it was one individual. And basketball, way more than football. Like if Drake May never wins a Super Bowl, but he just becomes, let's say, their playing styles are different, but let's just say like the level of like Phillip Rivers, right? He just has like like a really good player, Pro Bowl level guy, can win with them if you're well run. The Patriots will be fine. They'll sell out. They'll be a really big deal. They'll be playing on prime time. And it's like, yeah, he's not Tom Brady, but the brand of the thing will not change and it will be worth billions upon billions of dollars. Last night, I'm sitting there. I'm next to Brandon Crawford, who was the starting shortstop for multiple World Series teams with the Giants. He went to multiple All-Star games. Like he wasn't actually part of the first World Series in San Francisco Giant history, which was in 2010, but he was part of the second and the third. And he was a really, really big deal and a very important piece. And he was a part of this legendary kind of group of players. But like ultimately, the Giants were built on Willie Mays, on Cepeda, on Will Clark, on obviously Barry Bonds, and they'll be good again and they'll be built on other players and the brand will maintain. But I'm watching Steph Curry last night and I'm looking around and it is just packed. And I mean packed with Warriors fans. When we first got to the game, we go to the bar to grab a brewski and I hear this eruption and I look over and I see the TV and he had just hit a shot. Steph had hit a shot and he's on the road. You could argue that since Michael Jordan, there has not been a more important player to their franchise than Steph Curry. Because even Kobe Bryant, which was very important to the Lakers brand, like the first couple championships, Shaq was the more important player, or definitely his equal, and he was more famous at the time. But even that version of those guys, the Lakers brand was fucking enormous. It was the biggest brand in the NBA then. It is definitely the biggest brand now with LeBron. Like, and once LeBron leaves with Luka, it'll be fine. I'm watching Steph Curry and I go, if he disappeared tomorrow, this franchise that is now most of my life, like I grew up closer to Sacramento, and I'm really an NBA nomad fan. Grew up in the '90s, fan of Michael Jordan, like most people. Then the Kings got good, joined them, and then when I got into the radio thing and I was around Steph and Clay, I was like, I love these guys and Draymond, and they start kicking ass, and they're just a fun watch. But it feels like the whole franchise value is Steph Curry. The Indianapolis Colts, they say the home that Peyton Manning built. And the Colts dome is pretty cool. And obviously, anyone that's been there in the town, it's easy to navigate, even when it's cold, because of the convention center kind of set up and you never have to leave. They cut him. And then Andrew Luck came in and they started winning. And they would have been fine if Andrew Luck hadn't just got a snowboarding accident and tapped out. But like the franchise moved on, right? When Steph Curry retires or an injury ends his career or whatever, like The Warriors, their value as a franchise to me would get cut immediately in half. Somehow, currently, they're one of the most valuable franchise in all of sports. I don't think we've ever seen, beside Michael Jordan, like what LeBron did. Yeah, he re-awoke the Lakers brand, but the brand was already there. It's a worldwide brand. The Warriors were a joke. They had a local following, but their franchise for most of my life fucking sucked. Were completely irrelevant. Yeah, they had some Bay Area fans. They were not a national brand. There is not a more national brand than this guy. And one difference of him and LeBron, which are obviously the two most important guys of their era, is LeBron's a nomad as well. He goes to Cleveland, leaves Cleveland, comes back to Cleveland, goes to LA. It's like he just kind of, Steph's been with one franchise the whole time, and he's driven that thing up like a rocket ship. And I just, in my life, he'd have to be on the short list of like most entertaining athletes, any sport. It doesn't get any better. And when it comes to the value, like you can't even compare him to NFL players because they are 100% replaceable. Obviously, Brady wins the Super Bowl in 20 with Tampa, which was a really big deal. Then the next couple of years, they make the playoffs, whatever. Then they institute or implement and sign Baker Mayfield, put him in. They keep winning. And everyone's like, oh, Baker's really cool. He's fun. Let's buy some Baker jerseys. Doesn't even skip a beat. Like, there is nobody that is filling that guy's shoes. Just like Michael Jordan. The Bulls were 100% effed when he retired. That is going to be the Warriors. And he is obviously a spectacular player. I just don't think we've ever, at least in the internet age, anything quite like him. You know, maybe LeBron would have been that. He would have been that with Cleveland, but he's bounced on him twice and didn't even hesitate. Said, see ya. I mean, part of Steph's brand power and value to the franchise has been his loyalty to the franchise and never even entertained bouncing. But man, you watch this guy take this brand that was, let's face it, dog shit, and basically turned it into the Yankees, the Lakers, like an NFL team quickly. Everywhere he goes, everyone's wearing his jersey. It's wild. 10 years ago, you couldn't have paid anyone to attend a Warriors game on the road. I mean, now it's like they are paying to see this guy who's still 37, 38. And I mean, last night, it's funny, you know, in football, you can get your ass kicked and you can kind of like tap out toward the end of the game, but you have to try early on or you will get hurt. In baseball, I was taught this early on in my radio career. It's hard to say a team like isn't trying because that's what you look like when you don't get any hits. So if you get one hit, it looks like you're not trying. You're just getting mowed down by the pitcher. Like that's part of the sport. In basketball, it's very evident. Like, yeah, these guys, like Bradley Beal's just not trying out there. Like on the effort level, like you can just tell on a basketball court. Like it's one thing to just lose or even get kind of worked. It's another thing like not even have effort. And just watching this was an eye-opening experience. I mean, the Warriors just absolutely toyed with them. The fight for the jacket is on in Augusta. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook. From the opening round through Championship Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with live betting, player props, and so much more. Have you never bet on golf before? Don't worry, I got you covered. I love it, and I do it all the time. You just have to pick a simple golfer to win the tourney and make your pick. It's that simple. They also got top 10s, top 20s, head-to-head, a lot of different options. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Speaking of basketball, you know, the Nuggets, they fired their head coach yesterday. And a lot of these owners now own multiple franchises, right? They might own a basketball and an NFL team, or a baseball and an NFL team, or a soccer team and an NFL team. So if you coach for one of the teams, like you're always going to be judged by, like if they own three teams, whoever is doing the best, the teams that aren't doing as well are going to be judged based on the teams doing the best. And the Kroenkes have this huge portfolio of the Avs, obviously the Nuggets, and the Rams. And I remember when Kroenke moved the Rams from St. Louis and everyone freaked out. It's like, guys, you guys stole the Rams from Los Angeles. Like, I understand even if the right move was to leave Oakland, like to go to Vegas. Financially, it changed Mark Davis's life. But like Oakland, when like that was the Raiders' home where they started, and like I understand them being bitter and furious when they left. Like the St. Louis fans, like they're moving back to their home now. Stan Kroenke, Missouri guy, he's just a businessman. He just like, yeah, it's better off, more lucrative in L.A. And he's not wrong. But you lost a team that you stole. It's like if you start sleeping with someone who's married, she marries you, and then she leaves you for someone else. Like, can you really be that bitter? Like, shouldn't you have seen this coming early on? And Mike Malone gets fired. Like, listen, I heard Bill Simmons a while back say, like, oh, the NFL owners are by far the craziest. They do all this batshit crazy stuff. The NBA is firing coaches. Two coaches that are headed right to the playoffs got fired, one with like 3 weeks left, the other guy with a week left in the season. Can you imagine the NFL if a team like the Nuggets that have the best player in the world, who are a good team, going through a little rough stretch, just with like 2 weeks left in the season, fired the coach at like 9-6. It's like, guys, they're going to the play. That'd be insane. But in basketball, it's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy league. But if you're the Kroenke family, and I was thinking about this because I remember when Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke were at odds in getting in fights, and this happens sometimes in football, right? The GM and the head coach are at odds. And I've seen some people, whenever this happens in sports, like, isn't it the owner's job to figure it out with those guys? And I would push back. If I'm an owner and I'm paying my coach and my GM millions of dollars each, and both these guys are somewhere in the age of between 40 and 60s, right? These are adults. It's one thing with a player, right? Players are in their 20s. People are highly emotional. It's a tough pressure packed position. Like sometimes you have to intervene, maybe sit down with them and their agent, you get involved. Totally understand. If I owned a team in any of these sports and my GM and head coach were not getting along, I'm doing one of two things. I look at them both like it is not my job to figure this out. You two are adults. You guys either get along. I'm either going to pick whoever I like the most out of you two if this is a power struggle, or I'm going to fire you both. But it is not my job to basically be your parent and figure it out. And it was pretty clear, I've read some articles with the Nuggets that these two guys hated each other. And if you're the Kroenke family and you see Sean McVay and Les Snead flip teams around, the way they act, just how professional they are, I would have zero patience. And I like Mike Malone. I think he's an entertaining personality. But when you start walking around like your shit don't stink, even if your GM's an idiot and you won't listen to anybody and your team's not really listening to you, like it's not my job to figure out your relationship with your GM. Either figure it out, or if you get fired, like I'm sorry, I feel little to no empathy. But when I have Sean McVay and Les Snead as the example, if I was the Kroenke family, like that's kind of what I would be looking for. And I would have little to no patience of like, I got to hold your two hands. You guys are both, I don't know how old Calvin Booth is. I would imagine over 50. I know Mike Malone's like 53. I have to sit down and have a powwow to make you guys like each other. Is this sixth grade? Like, what the fuck are we doing? So when I see these guys fired and you read some of these articles, like, of course. Now, you could argue the timing's insane, but in terms of like getting rid of them both, um, totally understand. Like, I think some of these coaches and front office people that get to be like this power struggle and this ego attacking each other don't realize how stupid they look on the outside sometimes and how the fight tends to take both guys down. It's rare that you just get one winner and then that guy just gets to win forever. Every once in a while it happens. But for the most part, even if the guy wins in the short term, he usually goes down in the next couple years. I remember last year, my guy, Adam Peters, took a lot of crap because he brought in all the quarterbacks at the same time and he took them to Top Golf. And everyone on the internet was talking crap. They were all, does this guy know what he's doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why don't you bring them in one by one? And it clearly was the right move because he brought them all in together. He got a feel for how they acted. He almost like, it was like an alpha test. Who was going to rise above them all? And he clearly made a choice that through 1 year looks like the right choice. You could argue Ryan Poles, why didn't you bring in all these guys? You just went with the easy thing, like took Caleb Williams. I'm not saying it's the wrong choice, but looking back, Ryan Poles should have brought every single one of these quarterbacks, especially the top three guys, into his building. And he didn't. I would take the approach if I were these GMs, and Spytech is currently doing it. He brought Jackson Dart, which obviously he's not going to take it six, but would he take the guy in the second round? Could they trade up and get? But Ashton Genty and Will Campbell at the same time. And I do wonder if you bring in the guys at the same time and just watch the way they interact together, you might get a better feel than if you bring them in individually. Now, sometimes just logistically, they're coming from the same training area. That's the dates that fit for them. So sometimes it's not as deep as they're trying to figure out and let the cream rise when they walk in the building. But I think the no-brainer move, especially if you're drafting really high, would be to bring in as many of the guys that are on, uh, the potential list of people you would pick all in together and get a feel for like when they're at breakfast, when they're at lunch, when they're walking around the building all at once. Instead of, because sometimes, like if you're a single guy and you dated four women, right? And I said you had a date Monday, you had a date Tuesday, you had a date Thursday, and you had a date Saturday. There's a chance if Saturday just goes, oh, pretty good, even if you liked some of the ones earlier in the week, that's just the fresher experience. And sometimes that changes the way you look at it. So when they're all there at once, when they all leave, like you kind of have, I would say, somewhat of a gut feeling when they're taking off of what you felt when you were around them all. And these are very, very difficult decisions because we won't know if you're right or wrong for years moving forward. But when it comes to pulling the trigger, when you're drafting really high, you better get it right because ideally, if you start winning, you're not going to draft this high again. So you get the opportunity to take really talented players. You get the chance to pick between the group, right? And there's a chance the team 10 slots below you will draft a better player, but it's not because they had more options. They actually have less. Like you have options to players that they probably would have picked if they were given the chance instead of the guy that they actually took that turned out to be good. So you just, I, I think bringing guys in together is the right move. Okay, let's end on this. Welcome to Chasing Challenges, brought to you by Microsoft. In the NFL, just like in business, overcoming obstacles is key to success. Microsoft empowers business decision makers with AI solutions, simplified cloud and data management, and trustworthy, responsible technology to turn challenges into opportunities. In this segment, we explore some of the biggest challenges being faced in the NFL and how they can be overcome. Whatever challenge you're facing, Microsoft empowers you with the expertise to say, bring it on. This week, we're discussing the challenge faced by the Atlanta Falcons. Listen, what they did last year is still a head scratcher. To give Cousins that much money, to then draft Michael Penix, and now they're in this situation with Michael Penix as their starter, OTAs and the offseason starting, and Raheem Morris saying Kirk Cousins is not coming around. Now, you cannot go into training camp. I don't care what you say and how much money Arthur Blank is and how big of a pro Kirk Cousins is with Cousins showing up on your roster. You have to find a way to get rid of him. And Raheem Morris basically admitted Kirk Cousins didn't show up to OTAs. He's not going to be around. And I think in a perfect world, they trade him during the draft. But here's the thing, and this is the challenge of being a head coach. And this was the problem once they made this decision. Because when they drafted Michael Penix and they said, well, we're just trying to load up the quarterback room, which we understand, you didn't have the thought of drafting Michael Penix when you signed Kirk Cousins and gave him a no trade clause. Or else you never would have given him the no trade clause. But you guys fell in love with him after you signed Kirk Cousins, and now you're in this predicament. But you don't control the Kirk Cousins trade because I'm sure there are some teams interested right now and are saying, hey, wait till after the draft, and then we can rekindle and restart our trade talks and figure out a way to get Cousins on a roster. But that's not a lot of teams. It's got to be a short list, especially given that you're going to have to take on some of his salary, even if the Atlanta Falcons eat some. But what if those teams, and let's just say it's two or three, all end up with quarterbacks relatively, hell, not even in the first round, but in the second and the third round? What if they're not interested in him anymore? And now you're in a position where you don't have a trade target. So you're going to be staring down the offseason gun barrel of like, are you going to start training camp with him still on the roster and trying to give the keys to this franchise to a young quarterback and make Cousins show up and have this weird kind of halo hanging over your offense and the quarterback room? You can't do that. That's just bad business. That's just bad ball. That's just bad management. So this is one of those situations from and a challenge for the Atlanta Falcons that's kind of out of their control. They better just keep their fingers crossed and pray that the teams that have some interest currently in Cousins do not fill their quarterback needs in late April. That's it for this week's Chasing Challengers. Remember, Microsoft's AI solutions empower you to take bold steps and make informed decisions, speaking new ideas to help drive your business forward. With Microsoft as your trusted partner, you can navigate your journey with confidence, finding innovative solutions and reaching new possibilities. Visit Microsoft.com/challengers to learn more.